Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, best place to get all of your Eagles and other NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and ladies and gentlemen, we have made it to the NFL offseason. And during this time, we like to change some things up here on the channel just to make it a little bit less redundant for you and a little bit easier for me. And so, before I jump into what's coming up for this channel and how the podcast is going to change for a little bit, I would like to ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe down below. It is always much appreciated, and it truly never goes unnoticed. Again, thank you guys for everything that you've done for me over this past regular season. And here's to a successful offseason, where I might have some things planned that are a little bit different than what you guys are used to, but we'll just have to wait and see how things fall into place. Okay, so let's jump right into some of the changes coming up. Now, I'm going to ask you guys to leave a comment to decide whether you guys would like one long episode a week on Saturdays for the off season, or two smaller episodes a week, one on Monday, one on Friday. I can pull both these options off pretty easily. A longer episode would probably be around 35 minutes to 40 minutes, depending on how much stuff I have to work off of. And these shorter episodes would be around 15 to 20 minutes, just recapping everything that's happened over the weekend on Monday and everything that happened over the week on Friday. Ultimately, if I start to fall in love with one of these ideas, maybe it stays during the regular season and we test it out. But with all that being said, please leave a comment below on what you guys would like to see, whether you think one style would fit what I do a little bit better, and I will take everything into consideration. Number two, over the next couple weeks, I want to do a Q&A. You guys ask me questions about my thoughts on the NFL, my thoughts on the Eagles. I want to hear what you guys have to say. So, as per usual, I have my link to my Twitter account, or X, whatever you want to call it. Tweet at me over there. Follow me. And I will respond to all the questions in a timely manner. In one single video, probably. And on top of Q&As, I also want to do tier lists during the off-season. I will be tier listing all sorts of things. The top 32 quarterbacks, who I think is the top 32 teams, who I think are some of the best wide receivers in the league. Obviously, as of this offseason, obviously things are going to change between now and then. Who do I think is the best running backs? Who do I think is the best defense, best head coaches? I want to give you guys a variety of different stuff like that. And maybe these are just smaller episodes that I can release in the middle of the week to give you guys an appetizer, either in between two episodes or just to hold you over until next week's episode. But we'll have to wait and see how things kind of shake out with that. Those are only the few things that I have in the pipeline for you guys. I just want to hear from you guys. I want to know whether you guys would like this kind of stuff. So please go over to Twitter or X or something and leave a comment and just let me know how you guys feel about that type of content coming to the channel, at least for the off season, to give us something different to do, rather than just me blabbering on for like a undisclosed amount of time. Okay, so with all that out of the way, I need to get that out of the way and out of my system, because that's what I've been working on for the past week or two, as the NFL season started to wind down. We now are past Super Bowl 60, and if you watched my episode of the Super Bowl edition of the podcast, Super Bowl 60 edition, sorry, I would just want to say that I was kind of right. I mean, the way that Seattle won was exactly how I described it. Now, they were way less explosive than I thought, but my overall thought of Super Bowl 60 is that it was really boring. It was, as I said, it was going to be of the likes of Super Bowl 53, which, if you don't remember, go watch that video. I explained how Super Bowl 53 was one of the worst Super Bowls of all time, and people were even saying it was closer to like Super Bowl, what was it? It might have been Super Bowl 40? Or there was something. It might have been like Super Bowl 20 or Super Bowl 40, something like that. I'm not great with remembering Roman numerals. But anyway, so it was just a really boring game until the fourth quarter, and even then you kind of knew who was going to win. Obviously, I predicted Seattle in a closer game than what it was. In the fourth quarter, Seattle was able to explode with offense, and really, my Super Bowl MVP did not show up at all. It was really Kenneth Walker who dominated this game. He was the best player in the game, period. You could make the argument that Christian Gonzalez was another top-tier player in this game, but he ultimately, it was not ultimately his fault on why the Patriots lost. He was able to shut down JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, during the game. And so that was one of their big successes. But ultimately, the Patriots' big loss was their offensive line could not stop anything. They look almost as bad. Not as bad, but almost as bad as the Chiefs of last year. And so this Seattle's defense, it was good, but it was fairly unimpressive. Yes, they were able to sack the quarterback 6 times, tying last year's Eagles. But where it was unimpressive is that they could only do it with a 6-man rush, whereas the Eagles could do it without blitzing. And so it just becomes less impressive with that thought. And on top of that, they really bullied Will Campbell, left tackle for the Patriots, and he's been under fire by the Boston media, by the New England media, by the national media. And so I feel bad for the kid. He's only 22, which is only a year or two older than me. And so to imagine a kid having to go through something like that and just get lambasted day in and day out, it's kind of heartbreaking. Will Campbell did what he could do off of an injured, he tore something in his leg at the beginning of the postseason, and he just kind of did what he was physically able to do. And so to see these big talking heads on these media shows to lambaste a 22-year-old kind of shows you how far the overall sports media, and especially NFL media, has detached themselves from reality as a whole. And so how does this really affect my views on both teams? Look, if we go back to my last top 5 rankings right before the season, or right before the end of the regular season, I had Patriots at number 1. I had Seahawks at number 2, but I said Seahawks could be number 1. It depends on how their offense shows up during the postseason. And I was right. Their offense did not commit any turnovers. Sam Darnold did not play outside of his own ability. Now, he did not have a great game because the Patriots' defense is pretty good, but he played within his own ability and did not force any throws that could possibly turn into turnovers. There were throws that needed to be better. Yes, I completely admit that. But ultimately, he played within his own abilities, which is why he won. He allowed Kenneth Walker to tear up the Patriots' defense. And I completely forgot that Zach Charbonnet tore something in his leg. It might have been his Achilles. Or no, it was his ACL. And so he wasn't in the game. I talked about him a bit during the Super Bowl edition episode. And so that kind of looks a little bit embarrassing. But ultimately, the Seahawks did not put Sam Darnold in a pressure situation. They just kept kicking and kicking and kicking field goals until they were blue in the face, allowed their kicker to become the most postseason points holder all time. And Kenneth Walker became the first Super Bowl MVP running back since Terrell Davis in the late 90s with the Broncos. And so overall, the Super Bowl from a football standpoint and from a fan standpoint was really boring. The commercials were really bad. I'm not even going to touch the halftime show. I'm not gonna get into any form of politics at all. And so ultimately, the overall game was pretty poor. And even as a football fan, where I really enjoy a good defensive battle, if it's too defensive, then it's just a bad product on the field. Or if the offense can't really step up when it matters most, then it's a poor product on the field. How does this work in favor of the Seahawks? Yeah, their stock goes up a little bit, but they're losing a lot of unrestricted free agents this offseason. So they're going to have to find a way to rebuild and maintain some form of this Super Bowl roster, which is hard to do because looking at the Eagles, it was almost impossible to retain all those pieces to help them get the same success that they had. On top of that, the Patriots, look, they benefited from one of, if not the weakest schedule in the NFL, and that's why they were able to get all the way here. It was impressive when they were able to beat some playoff teams, but Drake May did not show up in the playoffs at all. Name a game from the playoffs that the Patriots played this past season, and he did not show up. And so that theme continued into the Super Bowl, and that's the ultimate reason why they lost at the end of the day. And before I jump into some of the Eagles news that I want to talk about, I just want to say that we did not achieve our goal of going 100, 190, or 200 correct games predictions. Rather, we went 185 and 97. So hopefully next season we can get back to that. So as of right now, we did not break the record, and maybe in the 2026 season we can pull that off. Okay, so let's jump into some of the Eagles news. There's been plenty of that. And so, yeah. Jeff Stoutland, I believe we talked about this last week, but Jeff Stoutland is leaving the Philadelphia Eagles, possibly retiring or possibly taking a coaching job somewhere else. I don't know. I don't really care either. But Jeff Stoutland has stepped away from the Eagles. And supposedly, especially after reports this past weekend, there was bad blood. Yes, there was a little bit of bad blood, but the Philly news has blown it out of proportion. Stoutland's offensive line philosophy does not match the run offense and offensive line philosophy of Mannion that Mannion's teacher taught him. And so it's really a difference between an East Coast running style and a West Coast running style. And obviously Mannion's a West Coast. Stoutland's an East Coast. Stoutland runs the ball up the middle more, and Mannion is going to stretch the field running outside of the line. And so is there really bad blood? Maybe there is. I can't 100% report on whether there's not or there is, but it is clear that it's not as bad as people are making it out to be. And again, yes, we're entering a dry season of the NFL, but it doesn't mean we should make up stories to make them seem worse than they are. Stoutland, I believe, will probably take a coaching job somewhere else eventually. And as of right now, he had a quite successful tenure in Philadelphia, and he earned all the praise that he got. But this past season, he was really bad. And like we talked about last week, when Sirianni stepped in to fix the run game during Week 14 and onward, the run game majorly improved and looked way more explosive than anything that Stoutland was coming up with. And so the argument can be made that Stoutland, yes, he was an amazing offensive line coach, and yes, he's had the run game coordinator title for a little while, but maybe he hasn't been handling that. Maybe that's been the previous few offensive coordinators that have handled that job for him. Sticking with the Eagles' offensive line, there's new news that really shocked me, is Landon Dickerson could be retiring. The rumor right now is that the 27-year-old left guard is contemplating retirement. Dickerson has not had a fully healthy season, at least missed one game every season during his NFL career. Dickerson also has a long list of major surgeries, and most players wouldn't push through most of it. I mean, I'll take you back to his college days. Let's go back to that. So we're going back to 2016. He tore his ACL in his right knee. In 2017, he had a season-ending ankle injury. In 2018, he had a severe ankle sprain that kept him out of a few games. In 2020, he tore his ACL in his left knee. In 2021, when he was drafted with the Eagles, he missed some time to recover from that left knee ACL injury, and then also damaged his thumb during that season as well. In 2023, so it seems like 2022 and 2024 were the only seasons that Landon Dickerson was completely healthy. But in 2023, he had a left knee injury in the NFC Championship game, but he ultimately was able to play off on it, and he did eventually get an undisclosed surgery for it. In 2025, his right knee suffered a meniscus injury during training camp. Remember, we all talked about that, and I saw it in person, and that was completely terrifying. And in 2025, he dealt with a back and ankle injury throughout the season, missing time during October. So, ultimately, Dickerson has not had healthy seasons besides our 2 Super Bowl seasons. And so that kind of makes it understandable that he's not going to last as long as a Lane Johnson, who's 36, or a Jason Kelce, who made it to, 35? And so I wouldn't be surprised if he does come back. I feel like he probably will come back for at least one more season and then retire. If they can win the Super Bowl, he will retire a Super Bowl champion. But how are the Eagles going to replace him if he does retire this offseason? Well, in the draft, there are a few offensive guards that are projected to go around where the Eagles pick. One from Penn State, whose name I'm not going to remember, and once we get closer to the combine and the draft, then we'll sit down and actually do that. And so I do feel like they're going to have to go through the draft, and on top of that, Mekhi Becton got cut by the Chargers, meaning that Becton is back out there as a free agent. The only place he has found success was with the Eagles, so I'm willing to bet they can get him cheap on a multi-year contract to come back, at least play right guard if Dickerson stays, and if not, play left guard when Dickerson is gone. So I will keep you guys updated on Landon Dickerson, and we'll talk more about him in a second here after this next guy. This next guy, though, to me is a little bit more important, that being, is Lane Johnson coming back? And Lane is 36, which is very old for an NFL player, let alone an offensive lineman who the average lifespan, they retire by 29 years old. And so he will be 36 for the 2026 NFL season, so it makes sense that retirement rumors have been circulating over these past, week and a half. And so there have been videos recently that have come out and interviews that have put cold water on such rumors. Lane was seen lifting very heavy weight to get back into shape and moving around, seeming to do more mobility drills as he rehabs. And so, to me, on top of an interview done by his close friend Brian Baldinger, who said during that interview that Lane is back in the lab to get ready for the next season, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the return of Lane Johnson to the field in 2026, making it his last season and his swan song this upcoming NFL season. But it does arise the question of whether both Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson could retire. And that would put the Eagles, in my opinion, in the worst possible scenario. It would mean the longest tenured offensive lineman that we have is Jordan Mailata, who didn't get a start until 2020. So 6 years, but that's still, compared to Lane Johnson, not that great. Obviously, I trust in Mailata. He's still one of the top left tackles in the NFL. And as a whole, I think that at least Lane Johnson is coming back. If I had to pick between Dickerson and Lane, I would probably pick Lane to come back and Dickerson to retire. The Eagles could probably easily replace Landon Dickerson by free agency and the draft, getting Mekhi Becton back to fill in at least where Dickerson is, and then drafting a interior offensive lineman with their first overall pick. And then getting a right guard maybe in the third round. Howie tends to find gems like that late in the draft, so we're going to have to find out who's going to be Lane Johnson's predecessor. We will see that probably through the NFL Combine, who the Eagles meet with, and who they meet with private training with some of these draft candidates. And so the offensive line, although the future is very scary, I do understand that, it's more promising than you would think. If we lose both, then we can have a discussion. But if we lose only one, then replacement could be a lot easier than people want to think. And we're just going to have to wait and see what the Eagles do moves-wise. But ultimately, I think at least one of them will return for the 2026 NFL season. Another Eagle did some interviews, that being A.J. Brown. During these interviews, he doused cold water on trade rumors. This was during a podcast with Micah Parsons and Bryce Young, a very weird trio of guys, but still, he got up there and he talked about his feelings, he talked about the future, and what he said was that he's kind of excited, and he did not excited by the changes coming with the offensive staff, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And he didn't blame Kevin Patula directly for offensive struggles, but I know that he's probably still thinking it as well. AJ believes that change is a good start to bring the offense to a modern football, and I just feel like that's what the Eagles are missing right now. And I think that's what he thinks that the Eagles are missing right now. He's seeing guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, and guys like Puka Nacua go out there and put up crazy numbers because of the offensive system that they're in, and wondering why the Eagles can't have that, because he knows that Jalen is a top-tier talent. And he knows that he is a top-tier talent, and he knows that Barkley can help open up the play-action game. And so we're going to see how Mannion disguises and where he puts Jalen, probably more under center than in shotgun, but we're going to have to wait and see with that. I don't entirely disagree with AJ's points throughout the podcast or interview that he did, and hopefully Jalen, AJ, Mannion, and Sirianni can all get on the same page this offseason. I know that's probably coming closer to like April and May, when we see all these guys actually being together in the same spot. Obviously, AJ was out there in Santa Clara, but I'm not sure where he's going to be this offseason. Jalen's probably going to be down in Texas for the offseason training, though he was, weirdly enough, I want to bring this up, he was, weirdly enough, with the Super Bowl legends when they announced them. Mind you, he was the youngest guy by at least 30 years. Or no, sorry, 20 years, 25 years. I think the next youngest was Brady. But to me, it was just insane seeing Steve Young walk out after being announced. I was like, oh, cool. So they're bringing out some of the best Super Bowl MVPs in NFL history. And then Jalen walks out right after Steve Young. And I got out of my seat and started celebrating that finally Jalen's getting the recognition that he deserves, standing next to guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Lynn Swann. Was Emmitt Smith there? I think Emmitt was there. But overall, just a bunch of amazing quarterbacks. And being at the age that he is, he's below 30. He has the Super Bowl. He's come close to an MVP. He has the Super Bowl MVP. We're going to have to wait and see how Jalen's rest of his career plays out. But this is a good first start for a Hall of Fame kind of resume. And so, with all that being said, we're going to move on to the finalized Eagles offensive coaching staff. The list that I am about to read off include new, returning with uncertain roles, and no longer with the team. Now, I will make the distinctions as we go, but here are the lists of the Eagles offensive coaching staff. We have new additions. We have Sean Mannion as offensive coordinator, obviously previously quarterbacks coach for the Green Bay Packers. We talked about Mannion. We're going to talk more about Mannion as the offseason goes on. And just more and more I hear about this guy. Talked about some other coaches that worked with him in the past and other head coaches that worked with him as a quarterback as well. I just get more confident in this guy coming in and scheming up something that the Eagles can come in with and explode with. Josh Gizzard is coming in as a passing game coordinator. He was the Bucs offensive coordinator. We've talked about him in the past. Not all the Bucs offensive playing was his fault. So Josh Gizzard is a happy addition here in Philadelphia. We got Ryan Mahaffey, run game coordinator, tight ends coach. I believe Mahaffey is from Green Bay as a wide receivers coach. So coming in as a tight ends coach is questionable for me. I believe we needed a guy with more, with more blocking schemes for our tight ends. And but overall, Mahaffey could be a good resource for current wide receivers coach to lean on during this new offensive system. Next up, we have Chris Coper. He's the offensive line coach for the Eagles, and he's a former offensive line coach with the Vikings over the past, 3-4 years. And overall, people were really, riding this guy because we just got rid of Jeff Stoutland and we brought in this guy, but you don't know. We won't know how this guy actually coaches up his offensive lines in Philly until we see the offensive line play in the preseason and during the regular season. I think this guy could be good. He developed some solid offensive linemen in Minnesota, but he had to deal with injuries. And like anything, injuries and 15 different offensive line combinations can kill any offense. And so that's not really his fault. Yes, he took the blame for it, but I still think Coper has something to prove here in Philly, that he can develop guys like Tyler Steen into top-tier talents. Some guys returning in the same role. Jamal Singleton, running backs coach, assistant head coach. Aaron Moorhead, who I wish they fired, wide receivers coach. Moorhead has been here since 2020. He has not really shown that he can develop guys that well. Rather, we just have two amazing wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So, Moorhead, yes, he's fine, I guess, to stay, but if we do not win, he should be one of the first guys to go. Returning, but with an uncertain role, we have Parks Frazier. He was the passing game coordinator. Obviously, Josh Gizzard took over that role. Greg Austin, he's assistant offensive line coach. We don't know whether Coper's going to keep him around, but he might, just so he can get some wisdom that Stoutland left with Austin. Eric Dickerson, offensive quality control coach. Obviously, that might change after this Eagles offense last season. Montgomery Van Gordener, offensive quality control coach. One of these guys has to get fired because of how bad it was. Scott Loeffler, quarterbacks coach. We don't know whether he's staying or he's going. I would prefer, and I think Jalen Hurts has said that he would prefer Scott Loeffler to stay. And we're going to have to wait and see whether that's truly the case or whether he finds a job somewhere else or gets fired. Kevin Petula is staying. In what role, everybody is unsure of, but he's staying in some form since he's buddy-buddy with Nick Sirianni. And finally, we have no longer with the team Jeff Stoutland. Obviously, Christian Parker was the defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach. Jason Michael, tight ends coach. Thank God we got rid of him. And Tyler Yelk, defensive assistant coach. I think he went with Christian Parker to Dallas. And so that's the Eagles' basically finalized coaching staff, which needs to be done before the NFL Combine so they can all get together, get on the same page, and target some guys that they like. That being said, we're going to move off of the Eagles for a couple minutes. We're going to talk about two quarterbacks who are on the chopping block, one officially, one unofficially, but basically is. We have what's going to happen to Tua and Kyler. You can see where I mix them up. Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray are both on the chopping block. Apparently. So, where do I think both gentlemen can go? Well, I think Tua... We'll get to Tua in a second here. I think Kyler is going to go to the Jets. And here's why. They need a playmaker. They need a guy that can actually show up and work hard, unlike Justin Fields, and they need a quarterback, unlike Justin Fields. And so I feel like bringing in Kyler to challenge Justin Fields could bring out the best game that Justin Fields has. But on top of that, Kyler, I just think is a better overall quarterback. I think the Jets have the cap room for it. The only tricky part would be, they have an extra third-round pick from trading Sauce Gardner. And so I think they could probably bring on Kyler's salary, his contract, and ultimately send maybe a third-round pick to the Cardinals, who are most likely going to start Jacoby Brissett this next season until they find a guy that they like in the draft. On top of that, moving over to Tua. Tua's an interesting case because there are not a lot of places that have or need a starting quarterback. You can make the argument that the Saints, and as much as I would love to make the argument that the Saints would be the best spot for him, I think that they believe in Tyler Shuck a lot more than bringing in an aged and defeated Tua. So I think Tua is going to get traded, but I think he's going to be a backup. Give me one sec here. Looking at it, I don't think he would be a bad spot for the Vikings if he wants to relaunch his career. Wouldn't be a bad spot for him. The Raiders, I don't think would be a bad spot for him. Have Fernando Mendoza sit behind him. But to me, Tua needs to go to a Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay style head coach where they can kind of regenerate his career even as a backup, or even Kyle Shanahan as well. Those three guys, to me, it's more likely that he goes to the Vikings and starts than goes to somewhere like the Raiders or obviously the Rams or the 49ers and starts. And so my top spot for Tua right now is probably the Vikings. They're probably looking at J.J. McCarthy not having as much confidence as they did coming into the season and are now thinking that, hey, maybe we can bring in a guy that has some experience and see if we can't revitalize his career, similar to what they were able to do to Sam Darnold. So, to me, the Vikings are the top spot for Tua. On top of that, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and be a backup for Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay in San Francisco and LA, respectively. And that's kind of it for this episode of the podcast. We have a few big NFL things to look forward to. The NFL Combine, which is where a lot of stories of trade rumors, the real trade rumors, not A.J. Brown trade rumors, but real trade rumors and who teams are kind of looking for in the draft. Those stories are going to come out during that NFL Combine here in late February, early March. I want to think it's February 27th through March 2nd. And so, looking forward to it. I do think that we're going to hear some more. You're going to get retirement news before that. So we're going to know whether Lane Johnson or Landon Dickerson are going to retire. And we're going to see whether the Eagles are targeting offensive line in the draft because they know that that's going to happen or that has already happened. And so, on top of that, the legal tampering period starts March 9th, and official NFL free agency starts March 11th. And finally, the NFL draft is in late April. So we have a strong timeline of things coming up. And so through that, I will be releasing podcast episodes up until June or late May, early June, in which it becomes that dry spell. So please leave a like, comment what you guys would like to see, and tweet me over on X, and we will strike up a conversation. And until next time, I will make a tweet on when the next episode is coming out. Probably not next Wednesday, probably next Saturday, so allow some stuff to happen so it gives me some big news to talk about. But until next episode, I love you guys. And remember, go Birds.